You're listening to Welcome to Eloma, a podcast for highly ambitious dreamers who get shit done. I'm your host, Kylie Peters. This is a space where we talk about expanding your business via purpose-based lead generation. Now, this is what I mean when I talk about that. Oftentimes, we talk about expanding our businesses. We think about expanding productized services or launching a new product or introducing a new partnership or something along those lines. There are a ton of different ways that we can expand our business. However, one that may not always be top of mind is expansion through lead generation. Now, I have been working with today's guest since I moved to Milwaukee at the tail end of 2017, and I'm super excited to have this conversation with her. Today, we're speaking with Stephanie Melnick. She's been practicing law for nearly 30 years now and owns Melnick Melnick, a Milwaukee law firm that serves small businesses and their owners. They've carved out a niche largely focusing on serving women small business owners. And in doing so, they've begun to expand their offerings through a series of lead generation event planning initiatives, which is a bold move. And I'm super excited to jump into this because, again, it's not something that we typically think about, but it's a real business move. So I'm excited to dive into this with Stephanie. And I'm sure we'll jump into some legal things in the process because we have way too much legal knowledge in front of us right now to not tap into it in the slightest. So that being said, welcome to Eloma, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to be here. I get to talk to you about officially, right? Because I talk to you all the time, but not, in an official podcast capacity.
Oh yeah. Now we're being recorded and people can listen to us.
Oh, that's hopefully not frightening. Okay.
Okay. So Stephanie, I know you work with a lot of different small businesses, but you do work a lot with women's small businesses. And over the last few years, you guys have been in business for a long time, right? Over the last few years, you launched She Stands Tall, which is a speaker series focusing on women entrepreneurs, right? Then you launched She Shines, which is essentially a mastermind for local women entrepreneurs. And now you have taken over Milwaukee's Women Entrepreneurship Week, started here in Milwaukee. And, the journey of Women's Entrepreneurship Week has gone all over the place. But now it's under your control. And you are also an active sponsor in so many women's related business initiatives. So, what has been your thought process and strategy in this very seemingly deliberate expansion? And I just want to give you kudos for being a law firm expanding in all these ways, because it's not something that we typically see.
Thank you so much. I like to do things different, out of the box. I feel like it, so truth is, when it started back in summer of 2017, it was because I thought, wow, this would be really fun to learn about why people start small businesses and why women do it here in Milwaukee and what they're doing. And I just thought that would be really cool. And I figured naively, maybe, but I guess it's turned out that if I had that interest, so did other people. And so I said to Sarah, who's another attorney in my office, I said, what do you think about if we do these events and we have people come and we learn about what they do and we give them wine and snacks and, it'll be really fun. And she's like, yeah, that sounds really fun. We should do that. And so at the time, had a relationship. I still do a relationship with the lovely sisters that own the Ruby Tap, and they have a bar in Juana and in Wauwatosa. And so we went to them and we said, what do you think of this idea? I like to say a lawyer walked into a bar and said, let's plan events together. And it took them less than 24 hours. And they were like, yes, we're in. What do we do? And so it was really fun for a long time. We did events at their Back One Bar at the time. Our office was out that way. It was really fun. We got the speakers. We asked questions. They provided the wine. They provided the truffle popcorn, which is favorite. I recommend you going just for that. It is so
They
good.
have great truffle popcorn.
Oh my God, so good. And it was great. And they, we let them sell the tickets and deal with all that stuff. And it was really fun. And then we realized some people who live in different parts of town maybe don't want to drive half an hour north. And so we started expanding and doing events in other parts of the city. And that was really fun. And so then we had kind of a thing where we were talking to different entrepreneurs in different parts of the city, and we had different people coming. And then January of 2020 was truly like our biggest event. Yeah, ever to that point. We had an event at Real Lake Rentals, which is in Walker's Point. Now they moved to a slightly different location, but they rent out all kinds of amazingly cool stuff for like weddings and photo shoots. And so they had this like super cool warehouse where you could see all their stuff. So we had this event there. We had our biggest event yet, January 2020. And then we all know what happened.
And then boom.
Yeah. So everything was shut down. We tried to do a couple of events online, virtually, and She Stands Tall online just didn't feel quite the same. Trying to build a community of women business owners and bring them together to support each other online, it wasn't quite the same. So we did a little bit of that, and then we decided to take a break and came back to doing things in person. And by then we had moved downtown to Walker's Point. So we've been doing events in our office since then. COVID added some complexity. We had to wear masks for a while. We had to do all kinds of different things, but, ultimately it just turned out to be something that people really loved going to. We had a regular crowd. We had, it just got to be one of these really fun things that people not only we learned from, but people learned from each other, and people were thanking us for doing it because they were like developing this community and learning to support each other and meeting people they otherwise wouldn't have met. And there were like partnerships formed, and it was just so one of those things that just kind of like started as this, I think this would be really fun, we should do it, and turned into something that it is now, something else, which has been, an amazing thing.
Yeah. And then, and I think, was it during COVID that you started She Shines?
Yeah. So that was funny too, because She Shines, another weird coincidence, just started January of 2020 also. It was when we had our first meeting, which, like sometimes, and that I think turned out what I've sort of thought since then, it was like fortuitous, because in a certain way, forming that group. And so She Shines, as you said, is a mastermind, but it's bringing together women with real business experience. So like we've all been in different groups where different people's business experience, or like some people have been in for 20 years or, almost 30, gulp, but almost 30. And some people have just started 5 months ago, and it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
And so we really were looking for people who could like give suggestions and get in the same amount, and not just be, well, what about my thing over and over, or just not able to contribute. And so that was kind of what we saw for She Shines, is really trying to kind of pull together a group of seasoned business owners and kind of curate it to some extent and make sure everybody in the room was really giving and getting, and, sort of proportional amounts. And so, yes, coincidentally, we started January 2020. We had like a meeting or two in person, and then we had to go online virtual. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, I'm not going to tell you it was the same virtual, but I think in a certain way that having those people you could lean on was a lifeline for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And being able to talk about, how are you doing this? And, the pivot, people make fun of that word, but that was really what we were all doing, and just trying to like, keep it going and keep a smile. And I sort of felt sometimes you like turn off the computer after those meetings and be like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. Like these were really, and so it wasn't intentional. I wish I could say it was, because that would have been like some genius move on my part. It was just another one of those like fortuitous things that got people through. And then ultimately, fortunately, we got to the other side, and now we're meeting in person. We built the group. That original group is up to 18 people. So we had to start another group, which has, I think, 15 or so people in that group. And there's demand for more, which will come eventually, just not quite yet, but will come eventually. And it's really been just, I think what was surprising to me is there's people in that group who do all kinds of things. Like there's some people who are service providers, but there's plenty of people who sell like different kinds of products online, in person, all kinds of stuff. And yet they all have valuable insights and advice to share. And sometimes least from myself. And I know you can tell me what you think, but sometimes somebody just has to tell you what you already know, right? Like,
oh yeah,
say no to that client, make that phone call, do the thing. Somebody needs to tell it to you, even though like somewhere in your head, you know it. And I feel like that group is very quick to be like, you know what you have to do now, go do it. And we're going to find out next month whether you did it.
So here's what my question is for you, Stephanie, as you're a law firm, right? And you launched She Stands Tall speaker series, and then you got She Shines, and then we're going to jump into Women's Entrepreneurship Week in just a second. But now a lot of people, as they would potentially think about doing this, would either say like, oh, I'm going to invite my existing clients to join this group, or I'm going to invite like prospective people. Like, how have you used these programs? And I don't say that as like oh, they were just a means to an end kind of thing. But at the same time, we're building business, right? So how have these programs helped support the growth of your law firm? In whatever ways you can disclose.
Right. Because, as you know, I cannot tell you the names of my clients. They can free to say who they are, but I can't. So I won't mention anybody by name. But, and that really wasn't originally why we created it. We just sort of thought, like I said, like it would be fun and interesting and we could all learn from each other. I think we represent small businesses. That's what we do all the time. I don't think there's a lot of lawyers that really kind of are doing that. They're trying to always represent the big guys. Yeah. We mostly represent women-owned businesses, not only, but mostly. And so we really want to create a space where we can be seen as kind of, these are the people you want to call, these people have an expertise in small business. These people have a certain understanding for women-owned businesses, first of all, because they are one, and second, because this is what they do all the time. And having done this long enough and I've represented enough women-owned businesses, the issues are just different. The outlook is just different.
Yeah.
And their willingness to collaborate is just different. Their skills are different. I think oftentimes for the better, what women are really willing to do and able to give to each other. And, somebody recently said, we here do small walkie really well. And I think that's super true for women small business owners. Like, we're willing to, oh, you need somebody to help you with that. I got 6 people, go call one of them. Or,
yep.
I can't help you with this, but I know the people who can. We're really willing to do that. And I think I can speak less for the guys because, well, since I'm not one, it's harder, but
yeah,
I think so. So I think that's some of it. So I think it definitely just started from an organic place, and it's grown to this thing where we're really thrilled to be building this community. We are building the community intentionally, and we want to be able to be seen as like, hey, we can, when you need legal services, don't be afraid to ask for them. We can help you. We know how to do it. We can do it. We have lots of budget friendly ways to get it done. And just so you know that, lawyers can be trusted advisors, and we aren't scary, and we aren't, we don't all wear 3-piece suits, and we aren't all white dudes. And, so some of it is that, I think.
Yeah. Which is real.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people, I think, don't even know what questions they should ask a lawyer.
Oh, I don't. For sure.
And so we're trying to say like, don't have to worry about that. Tell me what you do. We'll figure out if there's questions you should be asking. And maybe right now you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of that too, to your point in like some of the programming, She Shines and She Stands Tall, while they're focused on either the speaker or the people in the program, like there's legal things that get brought up, and not that anybody's asking for advice on the spot, but that's part of being part of the program, right? Is everybody adds their 2 cents and their expertise. So, I think that's just one thing for anybody listening to think about is what are the additional ways that you can add value to your audience that are, to Stephanie's point, fun and organic, but could and probably should help build your business at the same time. Like, for example, there's probably a good reason you're not hosting like old white dudes mastermind program, right? Like, it's just not your clientele.
Right.
Generally speaking.
Right. Like, good for them. And, that's all right. Exactly. Right. They're not necessarily our obvious market. I mean, we certainly have male clients. I'm not trying to say we don't, but
for sure.
It's not the obvious choice, the obvious place, but you're right that there's definitely legal I mean, in different She Stands Tall events and at She Shines meeting, there's financial and legal and marketing, all kinds of issues that kind of get brought up either by the speaker or by somebody asking a question. And the good part is there's usually somebody there who's got, whether it's me on legal or somebody else on something else, right? To step in and say like, okay, here's why I think you should do this, or here's who should call, or try these 3 things. And if that doesn't work, then call me. So that I feel like is really, valuable, just having like that kind of, brain trust, all in one place and that's why I say we really set out to build a community. And I think, and that's really how it's coming together, which is so fun.
Yeah. Well, and a community of people that make sense to surround yourself with. So, and I feel like that's becoming more and more prevalent, as everybody talks about pre-COVID, post-COVID, etc. I think so many people are seeing the need for community. And also, we very rarely see any one human only involved in one, right? So I know most people that I know involved in any kind of mastermind or program of any sort are usually involved in a couple. So it's just something to think about for anybody listening. Like, just because you start one doesn't mean that people in your group can't be in somebody else's group too, right? So there's also a lot of opportunity for collaboration. Now, that being said, just recently, you have decided to take on a big, new, exciting challenge of taking on Women's Entrepreneurship Week. And we were just talking ahead of time. I made the analogy of, when Ray Kroc started McDonald's, he would oftentimes say he's in the real estate business, not the hamburger business. And as Stephanie and I were talking about earlier, I'm like, Stephanie, I feel like you've turned from a law firm into an event planning company with all of these different event management initiatives that you guys have going on. But tell us a little bit about Women's Entrepreneurship Week and what brought you to this new opportunity.
It's Women's Entrepreneurship Week. The very basic background is it was started in 2017 by somebody else. She, I think, ran it for a couple of years. I think inside one of the co-working spaces, and somebody else took it over and ran it for a couple of years. Then COVID, and so it ended up being all virtual for a couple of years, then both last year. And I think it just turned out to be what people realize is it's kind of a big undertaking, which is what we've learned too. To be totally
is.
It's a big undertaking. And so
it's a week long of events.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. And so we started rolling over the opportunity, we were thinking about, what does this look like? And could we do it? And how would we do it? But ultimately it really made sense for what we want to do, which is, build this community of women and women entrepreneurs and learn from each other and inspire each other and educate each other. And it just was kind of like taking it on and turning it up 100 and some percent, maybe, but doing the same kind of thing in a different way. And so we took that over last year with the idea of planning for this year. We made some changes, which is, it had been done in November. That just seemed like a hard time of year. So we moved it, it gets really close to holidays. And so we moved it to May. So we're doing it May 8th through 12th of this year. We are very excited. And we built a website. So that was the biggest thing, is that they had it. There was no website dedicated to Women's Entrepreneurship Week or She Stands Tall or She Shines. And so we decided that the first thing this needed was sort of an online home. And so that was a very interesting process. That's all I can say. The technology kind of scary. I love it and hate it all in the same.
Oh, don't we all?
Yeah. I mean, so, and so we took it over because it fit, but yeah, that's been more event planning and more like nitty gritty of event planning than I really kind of totally realized, but it's coming together. It's going to come together so great, but it's, we were talking before, just like the little things that you don't realize are an issue until all of a sudden you're like, oh, I didn't do that. I guess I should probably tackle that too. So, it gets complicated fast.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. But what exciting new opportunities are you finding that are opening up for you having Women's Entrepreneurship Week? like under your leadership now? What new things are popping up?
I think some of it is sort of who ends up reaching out to us to help with different things, getting involved in different kind of entrepreneur focused, events or conferences or things. I think that has sort of come about because of Women's Entrepreneurship Week and She Stands Tall to some extent. I think some of it is just sort of like increasing our network, just, learning about more people that are doing this and trying to help figure out how we can do it together and how we can work together and, that sort of thing, just more bigger platform, I guess. I don't know how.
Like a greater reach.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. And we had been toying with, until like really the fall of last year, She Stands Tall was all self-funded. So the law firm was doing all funding for She Stands Tall. We didn't get a sponsor. We didn't even try because we were going to try. And then 2020, so we just tabled that and we revisited. So really until like the fall of last year was the first time we had ever tried to seek sponsorship for She Stands Tall. And so that was an interesting thing because we really tried to do it in a way where we could give small businesses an opportunity to get involved, especially female-owned small businesses. I think sometimes that it's always a corporate thing first. And I think, big companies have a lot to say and a lot to contribute in the sponsorship area for events, I've come to learn. But we always just wanted to make sure small businesses could be involved too.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were really intentional doing that related to She Stands Tall and now with Women's Entrepreneurship Week. But so that was kind of an evolution of the process. And then that became, so some of this, because we got to that point, taking over Women's Entrepreneurship Week, at least we could kind of see our way through it.
Sure.
Whereas I think if somebody had 5 years ago had said, do you want to do this Women's Entrepreneurship Week thing? I probably would have looked at them like they had three heads. Like I just I could have conceived of how it could be possible until we sort of, took our way through and took it step by step.
And for anybody listening who's thinking about taking on like additional, we'll call them lead generation activities to build their business or build their awareness, what would be your words of advice?
I would say start with something that you really want to do that sounds really fun and interesting to you, because we really wanted to do this. We really wanted to build this community. And so because of it, finding these events doesn't feel like work most of the time. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it feels like, okay, this is going to be really cool. We're going to get all these people together. We're going to listen to what the speaker has to say, and it's going to be really fun. Because if you have a business you're running also, if the other piece of it isn't fun and you don't want to be doing it, it's not going to go well. I don't think, you have to be wanting to do that. So that's my one advice. Second advice is get some help.
Yeah.
Get some help. I don't know how somebody could try to plan this. I think people before, God bless them, have tried to plan this alone. And I give them so much credit because that they pulled it together and made it happen is amazing. Because I don't think we could have done it. So we've gotten some help internally, in some level, everybody on the team at the law firm has pitched in and helped in one way or the other. We've got some external help, thankfully, in the marketing and tech and some other stuff. So I would say if you're going to add something to your business that's related, but not, you got to ask for help. Those are two really important things. And then I think kind of be patient with yourself, do it gradually. That's really we didn't start this out intending to plan a week-long event and do all this, I don't even know how many speakers we're up to and how many events we're up to. And we didn't intend that. It evolved gradually. And so it felt, just as okay, we're comfortable doing these monthly events. This is no big deal. Then we added another thing. So I would say as opposed to kind of diving into the deep end of the pool, maybe taking a couple steps through the shallow end is probably a good starting point.
Wade in, get your feet wet.
Exactly. Make sure the water's toasty and everything before you go doing a swim across some large body of water.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to ask this question too, for anybody who's looking into anything like this. What legal precautions would you advise that they keep in mind?
Yeah. So we we have a separate entity. So the law firm and She Stands Tall are two different entities, legal entities at this point. Okay. Which we also took a little bit of gradual till we got here. Mm-hmm. So that's an important thing for liability purposes. And I think you've talked about this before, but we really want to keep the business is separate, the money of both businesses separate, so we can avoid any liability kind of flowing from one to the other, even if inadvertently. So that was one really important thing. It's hard to remember for me, having just done it recently, oh, that does not belong here. I put that in the wrong place. I have to fix it. So that's always fun. And that's one thing. Written contracts is key. I just, I am a small business owner too. So I totally get why there's temptation to just be like, oh, it's a handshake. It'll be fine. We'll be fine. Or Google it or some such, Google a contract and think it's good enough. So I understand it, but I just really have to urge you, after my experience seeing it go wrong, that you really need written contracts. Please don't. I mean, I would suggest you please don't Google them, because you just don't know what you're finding. And there's varying quality out there. That's all I'm going to say on that. But just putting it in writing, what you're going to do, write it in clear English. You don't have to use fancy words. Making sure everybody knows what they're going to do and what is understanding. And I guess best case scenario, if you get some legal help doing it, that's, best. But at a minimum, putting it in writing, that's key. Even look, an email is better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I'll plug the fact that you guys have an online store, because I know you feel so strongly about the importance of a solid written contract. So if anybody's listening and they're like, I don't want to pay thousands of dollars for, this written document I know I need to have, definitely go check out Melnick Melnick, because they've got some really high quality contracts you can download that are written by real lawyers, such as Stephanie.
Actually, yes. And we did that really with an idea of, this is all just a commitment to small business and trying to where they are, and recognizing that for the people who need legal services and know they need legal services, but don't want to pay what it would cost to draft a custom contract, starting out with one of the templates that is drafted by a lawyer is at least it's a starting point. It'll give you a solid foundation. And then when you're ready a couple of years down the road, then it's time to say okay, ready for something just written for me. But yeah,
for sure.
Okay. Small business is legal services too.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, not that you don't have enough on your plate right now, Stephanie, but what projects or initiatives are you most excited about in the upcoming future?
I would love to expand She Shines. I really would. What I've seen from that group is just how valuable a personal connections between people who are actually doing all the things that we do as women and business owners, that having that kind of close connection is really invaluable. And I mean, that we created because there was a need, as simple as that.
Which is the right business reason, right? There's a need. If you can fill it, fill it.
Exactly. No, thank you. Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like something we needed and other people told me they needed. And so that's why we did it. So I'm working on trying to come up with a way that we could make it bigger and add more groups to it and fill more, help more people in that sense, give more people that kind of squad, if you will, and, help. And so it's just figuring out some of the logistics of this kind of stuff is just, hard. We're really very personal about how we do things. We really believe lawyers have to lead with kindness and lead with empathy. And, we really want to kind of get in there and know our clients and know who we're working with. And I know all the lovely women in She Shines, and now in 2 groups, it's 30 some people already. And so but at some point, in order to make it bigger, I have to get some help, I should take my own advice.
Get some help.
Yeah, get some help. So we have to figure out what that help looks like and how I can still be involved, but maybe not, like in the trenches with every single one. So that's on the horizon. I'd really love to do it. I think it's really needed. It's just like working my brain through the logistics of it is a hard thing.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay. My last question for you, Stephanie, is what is your greatest insight or discovery about life and entrepreneurship?
That is a huge question, Kylie.
I know it's a humdinger.
That's like, what, yeah. My greatest discovery. Well, I would say one of them is truly what having listened to all these entrepreneurs talk about their stories and what they do, what every one of them has said in different ways, which is, I don't do this alone. I like to say we stand taller together, which is just that you got to have people to lean on. So it's people in your team, people outside your team, your friends, your family, your partner, your kids, if you have them, your pets, even, you really have to be ready to lean on other people. Because if you try to really kind of like just do everything on your own, you're going to, I think, make yourself miserable and not serve your customers and clients as well as you could. It really requires kind of like leaning on other people. And also what we've also learned, I think, in seeing all these entrepreneurs is sort of, doing kind of the right thing, that not just, you want to think about what really is going to work for your business and what's going to work for your clients and customers and, potential customers, and not just like doing your business, but doing it where you're comfortable with it and you really feel like you're making a difference and you're really, doing it sort of what we all perceive to be the right way, even if it's harder or sometimes more expensive. Or I think in the long term, that really matters more to people, and it makes it more fun to operate your business and more like palatable on a day-to-day. If you think like, okay, this is harder, this is a little more money or whatever it is, but I'm really doing it the right way. And I'm really like the way that is meaningful to me. And, if that takes longer, so be it.
Yeah. Yeah. Having integrity in the work that you do and in the life that you lead. I think that's a great call out. Absolutely. All right. So Stephanie, for anybody listening who wants to learn more about you or Melnick Melnick or Women's Entrepreneurship Week or She Stands Tall or She Shines or all of the many, many things that you've got your hands in, where can they find more information or how can they get in touch?
Oh, yeah. So for She Stands Tall and Women's Entrepreneurship Week, our website has all the information. So it's shestandstallmke.com. And there's information about Women's Entrepreneurship Week, including registering for all the events, what the events are, who the speakers are, where they are, because they're, of course, in some different places because we like added complexity and they all were cool for their own reasons. So we have to go to the cool spot. So all of that information is there. There's information about She Stands Tall there too, because we're still doing our monthly events. And in fact, our April event features your sister Paige.
I know.
And Roshi and Stuzinski. I'm so excited. I know.
I'm excited.
Quality time with Paige. This is going to be super fun.
Don't get me started on my sister. Everybody's jonesing for quality time with my sister. Myself included. She's a busy lady.
Right. I'm sure you're number one, so I'll just stand in line, but I get a little bit of quality time with your sister.
Yeah.
But so we've also all the upcoming She Stands Tall events for most of the rest of the year, I think, are on there. So that's really great.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the law firm there is a link to the law firm from that website too, I'm pretty sure, but melnickmelnick.com is where all the information is about the law firm and what we do and how to get in touch with us and all the services and all the fees and all the fun things. So
all the fun things, all the legal fun things. You got so many beautiful photos on your website. That's one of my favorite things. Like it doesn't look like a typical law website because you have so many pretty pictures. So definitely check it out because it's a really nice looking law website.
You're very, very sweet. Thank you.
I'm serious. Anyway, to everybody listening, if you enjoyed this conversation half as much as I did, please go ahead and leave a review wherever you are listening. And Stephanie, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun, Kylie.
To continue learning how to better build your business and make your vision a reality, subscribe to the Welcome to Eloma email list at welcometoeloma.com.